am Chelsea Eilts with Gem Health. I'm a naturopathic physician, doctor of classical Chinese medicine, and trained in functional health. I am here today to talk a little bit about holistic approach to digestion. And just like adrenal function we talked about in a former segment, digestion is also a foundation of good systemic health. It represents the place where, other than our outer skin, it is the place where things that are coming from the outer world meet our internal environment. So having a strong, healthy boundary here that's able to bring in what's nutritious, leave out what's not, is crucial. It's crucial for a number of reasons. Primarily, we think about inflammation. If we look at the top causes of mortality in the United States, most of them are inflammatory conditions, and the state of our digestive health is one of the primary drivers of body-wide inflammation. Markers of healthy digestion are healthy motility, so that things move effectively. When you swallow, it moves down to the stomach moves things to the small intestine, small into large, and then out of the body. We also need to know that boundary, it has integrity, that the cells are tightly bound to one another, and only what's supposed to get in gets in through the body. We also need to know that we have healthy enzyme production in the stomach and small intestine, because it's these enzymes that break down our food into the small pieces that are required for healthy absorption. For a variety of reasons, each of these three factors can start to break down. When we look at motility, one thing that comes to mind is stress. Oftentimes, we are stressed out, maybe eating on the go, eating over our computer in a hurry, not really enjoying our food, just kind of going through the motions. And this can absolutely affect and hinder our motility, so the mobility of things through the gut. It requires healthy nervous system impulses, which mean that we need to be mindful, we need to be present and have what's called good food hygiene. When we look at the integrity of the cells, so that the cells are tightly bound together, a couple of things can cause that to break down. Number one, toxic exposure. Of course, if we're getting into foods or chemicals from our environment that are highly toxic, they can directly damage the cells in our intestinal lining and cause that boundary to become leaky and set up what's called leaky gut, or intestinal hyperpermeability for a nerdy term. Also, inflammatory foods can do it. So certain foods, when we get into them in excess, can set us up for a leaky gut. Gluten's one of them. When people, no matter who you are, no matter your level of sensitivity to gluten, if you get into enough of it, it will drive up zonulin. It'll cause a leaky boundary in your intestine. Some people have very, very low tolerance for gluten, and some people have a little bit more. So there's room in that, but it's just one example to give you of foods that can kind of cause some issue there. Another is looking at the microbial balance in the gut. If we're exposed to parasites, or from maybe past antibiotic exposure, opportunistic bacteria have an opportunity to grow in number. These different microbes can create inflammation in the gut and also weaken the integrity of the intestinal wall. Now, the third thing, when we're looking at enzyme production, similar to motility, stress and what's going on in our nervous system can absolutely impact enzyme production. It's important that we sit, that we see our food, that we smell our food, that we're salivating. That's a marker. The saliva is actually a marker that we're starting to make enzymes with which to digest our food. And then, of course, things that we are exposed to in life can reduce the amount of digestive enzyme that we produce. For example, not uncommon, maybe you drink a little too much water before a meal and then you feel like the food is sitting there. Having diluted your stomach acid, now you're not effectively breaking down the foods that you've consumed. A lot of people also have taken long periods of antacids, and likewise, this will reduce the amount of stomach acid, and then lower down can reduce the amount of pancreatic enzymes that are produced as a secondary effect from having low stomach acid. So these are kind of the problems that I look at often in the digestive tract. Now, to understand what do we do about it, of course, in my programs, the Ageless Health programs that I offer, I am absolutely fond of removing the guesswork, running functional lab tests so that we can find out of those issues, which ones are affecting you. We can look at food sensitivities in real time. I prefer something called the MRT test from Oxford Biomedical Labs, which looks, instead of just looking at one marker of food sensitivity, it kind of looks quantitatively at all of our immune cells and how many inflammatory markers are produced in real time when you're exposed to a given food. Clinically, of all the food sensitivity tests out there, I find that to be the most effective. I also like to run comprehensive stool testing. So looking at the poop to see how much inflammation is present. What are the markers for digestive enzyme production? What do those look like? And then for the microbiome, how are your opportunistic bacteria in a good place? Do you have enough probiotics, essentially? Of the opportunistic bacteria that can sometimes take over when something happens in your life that inhibit your probiotics or inhibit your immune system, where are they at? And then also testing to see, are there parasites present? It goes a step further with the stool testing, where we can actually even look for things like hidden blood in the stool and markers for inflammation in general. With that amount of information, then we can be very laser focused about what to do. In general, just to let you know, where my mind goes when I'm working with clients to improve their digestion is to something called the 5R protocol. The first R of the 5R is to remove. We remove inflammatory foods. We take a look at lifestyle and remove any toxic exposures that we can identify and effectively remove. And we also want to remove any parasites or reduce the numbers of any opportunistic bacteria that are present. As part of that phase as well, we want to replace digestive enzymes if they're not being effectively produced. From there, we want to go on to repairing the digestive lining. So there are certain nutritional substances, glutamine, for example, or slippery elm, for example, that are used to help repair that intestinal boundary so that the lining becomes strong again and keeps out again what we don't want to be absorbed into the body. From there, we want to, that fourth R is to re-inoculate. So essentially giving you probiotics, making sure that you're getting good amount of probiotics. Here, I'm a very big fan of spore-based probiotics, these bacillus species that we know they survive the stomach acid. They'll make it all the way down where we want them to be and then act as a placeholder. They can kind of keep some of the other opportunistic microbes in check long enough for the good bacteria that we want to be present to recolonize and flourish. And the fifth R is to rebalance. So this is a place where I like to look at lifestyle factors. You know, in our culture, oftentimes we think a pill for an ill, or what's the supplement for this? And really the truth is 80% of the heavy lifting that we need to do, or 80% of the maintenance, really comes from lifestyle instead of any pill. Of course, the supplements help. They can help shift our physiology to a more healthy state, but they should just be used very strategically and then remove. We don't want to have to rely on these things forevermore, right? So the rebalance phase is really looking at lifestyle factors that will keep the digestion in a healthy place. That being said, we travel, we experience life, we eat, we drink from places that maybe we can pick up different microbes moving forward. So this whole 5R protocol and digestive deep dive, I personally do on an annual basis because inevitably we're going to pick things up, and because digestion is so key to our systemic health, more serotonin is made in the digestive tract than in the brain. And there are more bacteria in the intestine than there are stars in the sky, and they also make their own chemicals and affect the way that we think. So it is crucial that we really look at improving our digestive health and keeping it in a state of health so that we can enjoy long-term lasting health ultimately. So that is a little bit of information to feed you about how to approach and think about digestion in your own life. If you are in a place where you're ready to get a little bit more one-on-one guidance with this, I welcome you to check out GEM Health, the Ageless health programs that are being offered, so you can get a sense if stepping into a one-on-one container in our space would benefit you. Alternatively, you can look for a naturopathic doctor or functional health physician in your local area to get support. Until next time.